Yeah, I think it's time for a break. Wonder if there's anything new going on with Diablo 2 Reimagined. Oh, there's a new notification, huh? Oh, crap. Finally, man. It feels like it's been forever. Dude, I'm so excited about this. Okay. Yeah, let's look at these patch notes. This update is in a similar size to 2.0 and brings massive changes. Okay. Full patch notes. All right, let's take a look. Oh, man, we're still going. I mean, how much could they have really changed, right? Oh, no. Oh, no. What is going on, everybody? Yes, there has been a new update for Diablo 2 Reimagined. We are now in the 2.1.0 era, and these patch notes are effing insane. Like, this is super long. I honestly think they might have changed more than just the straight up 2.0 patch. You would think that one would have more changes, but after going through this, I honestly have to say that I think it could be the other way around and that this one is going to be massive. I'm going to try to get as much as I can done in this one video. So hopefully you're at work chilling or something and you just want to hear these patch notes because this is a freaking doozy, man. Like, I'm telling you, bro, this is gonna be insane. So with that being said, let's just go ahead and dive right into this because we have a lot to cover. Treasure drops. Vinge went to war with screen clutter. I'm not too surprised because I do remember him talking about this in the Discord and wanting to actually clean that up for a while. So it's pretty cool that he was able to go through and get that taken care of. I am assuming that was probably a monumental task for him to undergo. But with that being said, let's go ahead and read about these, shall we? First, we have miscellaneous, and it's going to be Town Portal and ID Scrolls will now only drop in Act 1 normal at half the rate as before. I don't think anyone cares about that. I don't care about that. I'm fine with that because that just means less clutter. So we also have gold drops now have about a 0.2% chance to spawn, roughly, not including probabilities. It's closer to 0.02 overall, but there are a lot of enemies. So we will still be getting gold. Nobody should be worried about that. It's pretty obvious that we're still going to be getting the gold with all of the enemies that are out there for us to kill. Maybe it'll be a little bit more grindy, but I kind of doubt it. Not to mention the fact that the only thing I really use gold for anyways would be experience potions or things like that, or unless I'm making a video where I'm trying to gamble for an SOJ and see how long it takes. Gem cluster added and has about a 3.5% chance to drop when it can. See table below and we will get there. When cubed with bag adds 20 to 30 gem credits to the bag. Can cube up to 99 at once like gems, which is pretty cool. Maybe it'll be a little bit harder to actually find those gems, but if you have seen any of my other videos, you would know that gems and jewels are very important for crafting right now. I mean, unless that's changed, I guess we'll get there. But it's definitely cool to know that we could be getting more gems because I would commonly use those to reroll things. So I will definitely take more because that just means it's going to give me more chances to be able to reroll. Sunder charms increase total drop to about 1.5 when they can again see the table below. Let's talk about potions, shall we? So following the recent potion efficiency rework, potions of each tier will drop for longer before finding the next tier up. Players will no longer see potions of previous tiers as they progress through each act and difficulty. I really like that. I like that a lot, even though I'm probably not going to spend too much time. Well, actually, no, I guess I should take that back because nowadays I don't really go into hell unless I'm over level 80, which means I'm not going to find full rejuve or HP slash MP 5 until I get to hell. I guess it don't really matter though. I'm not going to go through every single one of these because it's pretty self-explanatory. It just basically means the higher up you go in difficulty, the better potion you're going to get. And you're not going to have to worry about being in, I don't know, Act 1 of Nightmare and finding potion 1 for some reason and thinking that it's just trash, you know, it's just less things for us to actually pick up. So I'm happy that they made that change as well. Drop chance decreased significantly from all monsters, which means there's going to be less potions. And I'm fine with that as well, because usually I would just go to a vendor to go buy my potions anyways. Players should see much fewer potions overall, which again is fantastic. Runes. So the drop chances of runes of 1 to 12 or L to soul unchanged, which is fine. Drop chances of runes 13 to 22 shall increase significantly. Drop chances of runes 13 through 22 shall increase slightly. Drop chances of runes 23 and 24, that's Mao through Ist, unchanged. And then drop chances of runes 25 to 33, which is a goal to a Zod rune, decreased slightly. And I am not mad about that whatsoever, especially considering the fact that I think right now I have like 15 Zod runes, which is insane because how many, bro, I don't think I've ever even gotten a Zod rune in just straight up Diablo 2. Have you? I bet a lot of people haven't gotten a Zod rune in over 20 years of playing OG Diablo 2. So the drop rate was pretty dang high. And although I appreciate the fact that you can find it now, so you can actually make some rune words that you probably have never made in your life, the simple fact does remain that we didn't really need it to be so high of a drop chance. Because let's be real, all you really need is like 1 or 2 Zod runes and you've got some god tier items. You don't really have to have 15 Zod runes. At that point, man, I was literally taking Zod runes and downgrading them, right, to get burrs or even Ist, anything that I wanted, simply because I had so many Zod runes. Now, could that be because I went into the files of the game and I actually just changed it to make sure that Zod runes drop all the time? Absolutely not, because I would never do something like that. So, I mean, yeah, this is pretty cool. And I might actually not go into the file, nothing. So keys can drop as a random drop from unique and otherwise unoccupied super unique mobs at about 2% chance. Reroll recipes have been made more expensive. Pandemonium key corruption orb plus town portal equals next key. Pandemonium key plus corruption orb plus identified tome equals previous key. So yes, and by the way, if you didn't know that you could basically transmute your keys so that you could get a different key that you might need so you can run the Ubers, now you know, and you're welcome. So let's move on to orbs. So orbs have been changed to prevent them from being force spawned when using the find item skill. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know that was a thing. Kind of wish I did, because I probably would have made a barb and abused the ever-living shit out of that. But it's okay, it doesn't matter. Orbs dropped in normal difficulty will be unstacked so players know what they do the first time they pick one up. And if you did not know that, you've probably never played this game before. Orb of Socketing and Orb of Corruption have about a 3.5% chance to drop when they can. Orb of Shadows has a 0.5% chance to drop when it can, which might sound like a lot, but it's still going to be extremely rare for you to actually find an Orb of Shadows. So jewelry, treasure class, jewelry, jewels, gems, charms, and orbs. Each difficulty now has its own treasure class, allowing for scaling drop chances per difficulty. Normal, jewel, 10% chance. Infusion, 2% chance. Conversion, 1% chance. Assemblage, 1% chance. Nightmare, jewel, 12% chance. Infusion, 2.8% chance. Conversion, 1.4% chance, and assemblage, 1.4% chance.
The numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for you.
Hell, jewel, 14% chance. Infusion, 3.5. Conversion, 1.75. And assemblage, 1.75. Which is pretty nice, because that just means it really is worth it to go up there in difficulty, because you will have a better chance of finding things that you really want. Now, obviously, it's always been that way, but I'm happy that they actually did that, because it really does at least incentivize you to try to get into hell a little bit quicker so that you can get mollywopped and stomped on and then realize that you have wasted your whole life. because you're getting destroyed.
Disaster for you.
Ring drop chance has been reduced by roughly 3.5% chance across all difficulties. So if it was not hard enough already for you to get the Stone of Jordan, don't worry, it's going to be even harder and you're going to be able to grind for even longer. Jewels have been separated from diamonds and thus given light beams. That's cool. I really like that. I know that there was a mod that you could get for a while on the Discord where it gave you light beams for certain things. And one of the things I liked was light beams on jewels, because I definitely want to find and pick up pretty much every jewel that I can, because we really need those for the crafting. So I am happy that they made that concession right there, because if I remember correctly, there was people that didn't really like the idea of adding light beams to jewels or light beams to, you know, a lot of different things simply because of the screen clutter that was going on. Now, me personally, I didn't mind it because I'm constantly trying to farm so that I could use those items to make videos or things like that. So I had no problem with it, because now you're not going to have to track down a separate mod and install that so you can get those light beams on jewels at least. So it should be a little bit easier for you to find and start stacking those up. All right, so chests. Not that kind of chest, you sick perverts. So no drop chance decreased from 60 to 20, down to 25% chance of nothing per pick from 55% chance. They randomly roll 4 times for an item or regular chest. Chest item quality from the best outcomes increased by 1 level. That's cool. That is pretty cool. So players can now potentially find items from the next act / difficulty, which is freaking great, because you are going to be in Nightmare for much, much longer. And one issue I did run into was it was starting to feel like I couldn't really transition into Hell very well, because I needed items that I simply could not find on Nightmare difficulty. Now, obviously, there's ways around that, especially if you've been playing for a while. You know, certain rune wares you can make, and not to mention the fact that you could just, brute force your way through Nightmare to get up into Hell, and then just brute force your way through Hell to eventually find the items that you need. But it is cool because we are going to be spending a lot more time in Nightmare. So I'm happy they made this change, because now we can start potentially farming for the gear that we're going to need for Hell. And instead of having to go through Hell and like hating our life because our resistances are so low that we're just getting stomped on, now we can actually farm more in Nightmare and not feel like it's really wasting your time. I don't know about anyone else, but I had that feeling sometimes where I would be in Nightmare and I'm farming and I'm farming and I'm farming and I want to go up into the Hell difficulty, but I can't because I'm not ready yet and my character's not strong enough. And it felt like it was creating this issue where I would start getting like super bored or frustrating to the point where I'd be like, why am I even doing this to myself, right? Why am I even doing this to myself? All I want to do is go up in the Hell. So just let me go to the Hell difficulty so I can find the items I actually want, as opposed to just using whatever it is that happens to drop. And along with that, Act 5 Nightmare chests now have a chance to drop Act 1 Hell items. So yeah, again, that's pretty cool, and that is going to help us out. Champions now drop potions that are 1 tier higher than the current act / difficulty will allow. So not only will we not have to worry about getting all of those trash potions on the ground, but now there is a chance for us to get a better potion if we are killing champions. Cows. Drop chances have been reduced slightly across all difficulties. Cows will no longer drop potions. Praise the effing Lord. I am so sick of that. I'm sure anybody who's been playing for a while is sick of that. Going into the cows, and it seemed like you would just farm and farm and farm, and you'd be getting so many effing potions that you were ready to throw that crap on the ground and then just destroy your monitor. Unless that's just me. Maybe I'm just kind of weird. Now, the only thing I don't like about that is the simple fact that I like to farm in cows a lot. I'm sure a lot of us do. And so it kind of sounds like it won't be as fruitful as before. But to be fair, the drop chances were extremely high, in my opinion, at least higher than vanilla Diablo 2. So I guess it's totally fine, because we have always had this issue where it felt like the power creep was kind of out of hand. It really was starting to feel like either you were way too weak or you were so effing strong that the game is just trivial to you at that point. So it does seem like they're trying to fix that issue, which in my opinion is effing great. Super uniques. Griswold has an updated rarity data and should drop more, similar to the other super unique. That's cool, especially because I've always felt like Griswold, I don't even kill Griswold usually. I feel like I have a better chance of getting something good from Rakanishu than I do from Griswold. So it's really nice that they're going to update that, because now we actually have a chance of getting something good from Griswold. Now, instead of just running past him and grabbing Wart's leg, I might actually consider killing him for once. White Council members no longer drop Terror Zone only loot. That must have been a glitch. I had no idea that was a thing, but it does seem like they fixed it. Up next, we have Act Bosses. All Act Bosses have had their drop chances normalized. What? Does that mean that they're not going to drop as much as they used to? And Dario, more equipment, less jewelry. Oh, great. So now it's not only harder for you to get SOJ, but they're making it so that Indario drops less jewelry and jewels and charms and gems and orbs. I don't know, man. Maybe I just had the worst luck ever, but I found my first SOJ like 3 months ago. And that's including every mod I've ever played of Diablo 2. I was starting to think that the SOJ maybe was a myth. By the way, if you want to hear more about that, go check out my iceberg videos, because I do believe I talked about how some people think that the SOJ is a myth. But again, if you want to hear more about that, go check out my iceberg video. And she now also drops gold. Okay. Durio, Mephisto, and Diablo, less equipment, more jewelry, jewels, charms, gems, and orbs. Okay. I suppose that's a good compromise. I'm not going to complain about that. Bale has less equipment, but more jewelry, jewels, charms, gems, orbs, higher than the others due to the time investment, which is very true unless you know how to do bell wave skip, which is pretty dang hard to get down, but once you get it down, it's pretty consistent. I know that was a dumb way to phrase that, and I apologize, because I basically said the same thing twice. Moving on like nothing happened, each act boss now drops an orb on kill with the quest active. So I'm assuming that means it's only going to happen once if the quest is active, and then after you beat it the first time, it's not going to be a guaranteed orb drop. I mean, to be 100%, yes, orbs are amazing, and you can use them to create some insane items, but you have to put in a lot of work to actually do that. So to be real again, sometimes I don't even care about orbs, because I'm just trying to make the rune words that I need. And especially with the chance of orbs breaking my items, I've always been afraid, well, the corruption orb, I should say. Like, I've always been afraid to use that one, because I had a Harley Quinn crest at one point, and guess what happened? I tried to use the corruption orb on it, and it went bye-bye. Now, let's look at these drop tables, shall we? Act bosses drop tables. And Duriel is going to be the infusion orb, so that you will be getting an infusion orb from Endariel or Duriel. Mephisto, you're going to be getting an orb of assemblage. Now, this one is my favorite one. If I remember correctly, that's the one that changes things into set items. And some of the best items in the game are actually set items. It's always been like that, but even more so, in my opinion. The only issue with that is they nerfed corruption coils, which kind of sucked. But at least you can still find the set pieces that you need. And although I know they're not the ones that made the mod that gave more unique items and more set items, one thing I would really love to see is if they were to actually make more sets to make maybe builds that were pretty weak or considered weak a little bit better, if you can get the full set of whatever it is that it would end up being. Diablo, you're going to be getting a conversion orb, and Bale, you will be getting an orb of corruption. Now let's talk about these keys here. The Countess will still be dropping a terror key. The Summoner will be dropping a hate key, and Nithalak will be dropping a destruction key. And now the percentage for that is going to be 3%. And in vanilla Diablo 2, I guess it was 1%. So we still have a 2% better chance of getting one of those keys, which should make it easier for you to go and farm some Ubers, unless you are a Nova source, in which case, just give up, man. Just give up. Do the right thing and just give up. All right, so rune bosses, all you really need to know about this, what I consider very interesting at least, is the fact that with lower players, you get more runes. So that's just something to be aware of if you are trying to farm runes, because you don't have to be on like player 7 or something like that to find more runes. In fact, apparently, you want to have less players to find more runes. So just take note of that. Not gonna go over all of this technical jargon right here. It would take me a little while, and plus I don't even really understand it myself because I am a freaking moron. But if you want to go through this and take a look at all that, all you got to do is go to the wiki, check out the patch notes, and you can go ahead and do that. So we are going to go talk about general skills. Warp now has a custom icon. Nice. Warp tooltip now displays mana cost and cooldown length. CTC is enabled across the board for every skill that it works for / makes sense for. And I guess we are going to start this giant list of changes for every single character. And if you don't want to have to sit here and listen to everyone, feel free to jump around and go to the character that you actually care about, because I already know this is going to take quite a while. So let's start with the Amazon, except F the Amazon, because we're going to start with Assassin, because nobody likes the Amazon. I'm just saying, no one plays as an Amazon. No, I'm playing. All right. We'll just go ahead and do it. Amazon, Poison Javelin. Casting delay removed. Duration set to 2 seconds at all levels. Synergy up from 12% to 15%. Damage curve reworked at all levels. Heavily buffed damage curve past 29 plus. Poison trail velocity increased. Trail moves much faster behind the thrown javelin. And poison trail duration reduced. Oh, I'm sorry. I was confused for a second there. Yep, those are definitely two different things. One's velocity and one is duration. My bad, guys. All right, so up next we have Plague Javelin. Remove the ability for Plague Javelin to pierce. That kind of sucks. That is a nerf in my opinion. And don't know if I really like that, but it is what it is. Plague Cloud expand velocity increased. Duration starts at 3 and scales to the max of 6 seconds at level 16. Adjusted synergy from 15% to 10% to compensate for the lower duration. All right, so that's fair. Okay, that's fair at least. Skill description updated to mention that Javelin does not pierce. That is a good move on their part, because there are going to be people that do not watch videos like this or that do not read any of the patch notes, and they probably would have been like, what the hell is going on? My character used to be good, and now I don't understand why it's not hitting as hard. So, well, then again, I mean, you know, if the synergy's increased up to 15%, maybe they wouldn't even notice, because that is a giant leap. But who knows? At this point, I'm just rambling about nothing. Skill description updated to mention, I already said that one, and so we will talk about multi-shot. Based weapon damage scaling to 100% from 75% due to missile scaling problems at higher gear levels. Synergy and GA reduced to keep the overall damage at the same value. Now let's talk about one of my favorites, the Assassin. And I really hope they did not take Mosaic away from the Assassin, but it doesn't look like they did, so I think I'll be okay. Fist of Fire removed elemental conversion for consistency with other elemental claw attacks. I don't really care about that, not a big deal, especially if I'm playing Mosaic, it doesn't matter. Blade Fury reworked. Now throws a shuriken using attack speed and bounces up to 2 nearby enemies. 2 bounce limit doesn't scale. That's pretty cool. I like that. I like that a lot. Still going to be playing Mosaic, but I do like that. Gain 1 projectile per 8 soft skill levels. Carry weapon damage and modifiers. Carries weapon damage and modifiers. Requires claw or a dagger. Doesn't gain bonuses from dual wielding. Yeah, so I mean, all of that is great and all, but if you're not playing as a Mosaic Assassin, then what are you doing with your life? Blade Sentinel now does 100% weapon damage and damage curves slightly increased. Blade Shield Damage curves slightly increased. Mind Blast tooltip updated to the correct duration. Was that broken the whole time? I don't even know. I never really paid attention to that. Depth Sentry tooltip updated to show the correct corpse explosion damage range. So I mean, all of that's really for a Trapsin, and I understand some people would like the play as a Trapsin, but again, I just cannot get over Mosaic. Man, Mosaic is effing broken, and I hope and pray to God that it never gets fixed. And I am actually surprised that it hasn't been fixed in either this mod or even Vanilla Diablo 2 Resurrected, because I think we all know just how effing broke. Let me go watch Mr. Llama's video. I think he got up to like what, players 1,000 or some crazy crap like that, players 500, and he was still destroying everything in his path. Maybe I should just shut up because I don't want them to nerf Mosaic. Barbarian, Battle Cry, removed curse tag so it stacks with curses. Tooltip updated to reflect range. Concentrate reworked into new skill Carnage. Can be used with any melee weapon. On strike creates a tornado, which explodes into small bone spikes. That's badass, man. That is freaking awesome. Bone spikes seek out nearby enemies. Wait, they're homing missiles too? Wow. 10% damage synergy with Bash and Berserk. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. That almost makes me want to actually go out and start using a Barbarian just to see what that's like. Deadly Treasures. Fix the stats so that the skill properly applies to 5/5/511 limits. Scaling adjusted to base. 25 plus 4% per level magic find. Scaling adjusted to base 41.25 plus 6.6 per level gold find, which is that's cool, you know. Find a little bit more items. 29 plus damage curve increase, so late in endgame damage is up to par with Hell monster difficulty. That is amazing. They definitely need that. That was a very good idea. I'm happy they made that change. Synergy increased to 15 from 12 to smooth out early to mid game. Again, that is a freaking awesome change right there. And you Barbarian players should be happy about that. Tectonic Slam. Spike range slightly increased from 14 to 16. Damage buff fixed to apply for the duration of the missiles properly. That is great too. War Cry. 29 plus damage curve increased so late and end game damage is up to par with Hell monster difficulty. Synergy increased 10 to 15 to smooth out early to mid game. And again, don't want to sound like a broken record, but the Barbarian definitely needed that, so good on them for making that change. Combat masteries and throwing skills. Not exactly sure what I'm trying to say there, so let's just move on, huh? So Unstoppable Force replaces Polearm Mastery. Level 1, high weapon damage, slow moving projectiles that pierces enemies and always hits. I hate polearms and I hate spears on the barb, and if you're one of those people that does that, what is wrong with you? Winter's Gambit replaces Spear Mastery, level 12, throws multiple projectiles that travel for a short distance, ignoring collision, and then home in on random nearby enemies and zips to them to deal damage and cold damage. Inspired by Storm Crows from Median by Brother Laz. That's what's up, man. That is what's up. I like that a lot. That is a really cool change, and definitely getting a thumbs up from me, and I want to try that out. That actually might be the character I try next. Chasm Break replaces increased stamina, level 24. Throw a weapon that appears to teleport into an enemy. It causes rocks to fall on them for a short period, dealing periodic weapon damage to nearby enemy targets. Credit to ESR Celestiary for the missile.txt entry, and Median by Brother Laz for inspiring the rock shower. Yeah, that's effing cool. I personally love Median XL and have played a lot of Median XL, so I really hope that this becomes a trend. I would love it for them to bring things from Median XL into Diablo 2 Reimagined, because one of the things I like about Median XL is there's a lot of classes that you can make in that mod that you could not make in vanilla Diablo 2. So anytime these guys want to bring in something from median, I would be very happy about that. And I hope that continues to be a thing. One of my favorites was the assassin actually has this ability where you use a claw and you hit an enemy and like bats come flying out of the claw and it hits an enemy multiple times. And in terms of just a melee build, that has to hands down be my favorite melee build in all of Diablo 2, including mods, vanilla, anything. That is by far my favorite. So I really hope that they actually do that and maybe even like bring in other ideas too. I know they keep saying it's really hard to do this, but I would love it if they would be able to somehow give us new maps and new enemies, because that's what I freaking love about Median is instead of getting charms with Median, you actually get charms from beating bosses. And there's a whole crap ton of different bosses that weren't in the game originally that they added to the game so that you could start getting charms that way. And there were like prizes for beating these, I guess you would call them uber bosses, right? Or rifts and things like that. And I think that is something that Reimagine is sorely lacking, but I do understand that that would be a gigantic undertaking, and you would probably have to make custom items and make custom bosses and things like that to be able to do that, which is probably that's probably at the level of being like, if I can do all that, I might as well just go work for a game company because I have amazing skills and can actually create video games myself. So I get why they're not doing it, but it would be cool if somehow it got done. Modoc's Furry, not Furry, Fury replaces Grim Wand. Thank God it's not a furry. Level 30, enhance player throwing damage. Adds flat cold damage to attacks and enhance attack rating. Gives you a cool glow created for the skill. That's pretty nice. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so I mean, it really does seem like they're trying to start bringing in stuff like that, which I love and is freaking fantastic. By the way, if you guys want more things like that, go to their Patreon, man, and like donate to them a little bit. They really deserve it. And if we get a lot of people doing that, then there might be more of a chance for them to be able to get stuff like that done. Because obviously, if you have more money, right, you can have more resources. So give them some love over there on Patreon. Let's go ahead and talk about the druid, the raven. Damage curve lowered by 5 at low levels and increased by 5 at skill level 29 plus. No longer usable while in a shifted form, which is fine. I don't really think we probably should have been using them if we were shifted anyways. So that might have been a glitch or something that was overlooked originally. So I don't think anybody's really going to be crying about that one. Hunger reworked into Toxic Fangs. And I'm going to read this quote right here, because I think this has some pertinent information to this discussion. Hunger didn't really have a good purpose. Getting life and mana steal was already easy to obtain. Lack of single target poison skill to pair with the incredible clear of rabies meant that you needed to go poison plus physical hybrid instead of full investing in poison as an archetype, which is very true. So I can definitely see why they're trying to make that change, especially because of everything they just said. So 2-second duration poison skill with high damage curve after level 29 plus. 15% synergy with rabies and poison creeper. Icon update to reflect skill change shifted to level 30 requirement. And that is pretty cool. It actually makes me consider using a druid. No, I'm lying. I'm still not going to use the druid. I'm sorry, I just can't. I just can't. It's just not for me. Poison Creeper synergy changed to 15% from rabies and Toxic Fangs. Fire Claws. Missiles updated to be visually accurate with area of effect. Change the function of the skill to require a target for the area of effect. Synergy is reduced to 20% from 25%. And we move on to Necromancer. And there are a lot of changes to the Necro. So go ahead and grab yourself a snack or something, because we're going to be here all day. So Bone Armor. Change from PDR percent to flat defense bonus because PDR isn't calculated with hits to the armor. Bone Spear. Synergies reduced to 10 from 12 due to damage overflow at high gear levels. Bone Spirit. Synergy reduced to 10 from 12 due to the damager overflow at high gear levels. I think that's just a typo. I think that's just supposed to be damage. Damage curve reduced for the same reason. As long as they don't mess with the poison necro, I'm totally okay with this. Bone Golem. Magic Mastery Aura now scales at 1% per level and caps at 50%, down from the 110% to prevent damage overflow. We also got Poison Dagger, usable with dagger / throwing knives. Duration is now set at 3 seconds at all levels. Damage adjusted to fit the role of single target damage dealer, available at level 1 down from 6. Has a small poison splash, which is nice. You know, a little touch right there. It's like a chef's kiss, I suppose. Curses no longer have prerequisite skills / travel tax. And hope they didn't mess up the Poison Nova. We got Poison Nova, damage curve adjusted so that the skill is viable when received and still stays strong as an all-around area of effect spell endgame. That is great, because they are correct in the fact that the Poison Nova can be a little underwhelming when it comes to the end game, especially if you're trying to kill Ubers and things like that. You probably don't have a chance with a Poison Nova Necro if you're going after the Ubers. So I like that change. Poison Explosion is now Poison Volley, usable with bows, crossbows, throwing knives, and throwing axes. Interesting. Poison-based range spell with multiple projectiles and a flat poison duration of 2 seconds at all levels. 2 projectiles starting gain +1 projectile per 3 levels of Poison Nova hardpoint synergy. 5 projectile cap. And a corpse explosion prerequisite removed. I like these changes here. This is a little interesting to me. I want to go and check that out just to see how the poison volley actually works. And again, this looks like another one of those changes I was just talking about, where we are finally starting to actually change the way that you play the game, as opposed to just giving us some orbs and things like that. Don't take that the wrong way. I'm not trying to be like, oh, you guys haven't done anything good or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying we've been playing this game for 20 years, guys. And I'm sure all of us want to have like new things to experiment with, which is why I played Median XL so much. So if that's something you want, actually, I would say go play Median XL, give that mod a shot. Because there is a lot of different classes you can play that would not be possible in OG Diablo 2. Oh man, I almost feel like this was straight up done for me, bro. Paladin, Holy Bolt, synergy up to 30% from 25%. I love it. I love Holy Bolt. I wish they would just give me infinite Holy Bolts. That'd be great. Fist of the Heavens no longer requires conversion. Delay changed to local only and reduced to 0.3 from 0.5, which just makes it even better. Lightning damage starts at 50 to 100, down from 150 to 200. Lightning damage curve increased by 10 minutes and max 20 per level from past values. All right, moving on to Holy Fire. No longer requires might. Okay. Sanctuary no longer requires Holy Freeze. And Conviction now requires Holy Shock, which is totally fine. I don't really care about any of those changes. So let's talk about a character that I do care about. Well, the most, I should say, because I do like the Paladin, but I do main the sorceress. So let's see what happened here. I'll go ahead and read this quote here. So the goal is to pull power out of the masteries and put them into the skills and synergies. Initially started because of various O skills and enchant. This initial pass has expanded to feel things out and swing a nerf bat at some outlier skills. Eeks. Anytime I hear the phrase nerf bat, I start to sweat, especially when we're talking about the sorceress. And buff up some underperforming or cumbersome ones. Okay, well, I guess that's a fair trade. Please give each element a try, as well as some hybridization. The masteries still provide some power as of 1 point, and synergies were cut back to limit them to the skill itself and 2 others, and power pushed into the skill level 29 plus damage curve instead of bloating the synergies higher. Definitely want a focused element build to be stronger. That is fine. That makes sense. But would like other builds to be viable to at least farm with and have fun doing it, which is great and all. But the only issue with that I can see is that it's going to be a monumental undertaking for you to be able to make all the builds viable. Could they do it? Sure. I'm sure they could do it. It's probably going to take a lot of time, but it definitely does seem like they're at least heading in the right direction. But good luck with that, guys, because that's going to be pretty hard. Cold Ice Bolt. Some early game, better middle and end game. 29 plus curve sustainability increased to maintain end game damage. Synergy reduced eeks to 12% from 20%. Move left on the cold tree. Now only has Frost Nova and Frozen Orb synergies. That's fine. I wasn't planning on playing as an Ice Bolt sorceress anytime soon. So Frost Nova, 1-point chill wonder is now a 2-point and can scale damage wise for decent area of effect clear. Requires level 12 up from level 6. Now has Ice Bolt prerequisite, removed Blizzard synergy, added Ice Bolt synergy, and increased 29 plus damage. Frost Nova's always been one of those abilities that I would usually put 1 point into. I guess I'm gonna have to put 2 points into it now, but I would basically just use it to give myself time to escape in sticky situations. It's been a long time since I've actually made a cold source, especially because Blizzard, although can be extremely powerful, it feels very circumstantial to me. And it might be kind of weird hearing that, but the thing about Blizzard is the way that the glacial spikes like hit the ground is it's obviously kind of dependent upon luck. You just kind of have to hope that the monsters walk directly into one of those glacial spikes that are coming down. I'm not talking crap about the Blizzard source. It's freaking awesome. I'm just saying I don't really use it that much, and I don't really know if any of these changes are going to make me want to use it over the Nova source, which in my opinion is by far my favorite character to play as. Ice Blast. 5 projectiles with a lengthy freeze toned down the damage a bit due to the mastery changes. Damage curve reduced 23 plus. Damage synergy reduced from 8% from 10%. Freeze length synergy removed. Now only has Glacial Spike and Blizzard synergies. Shiver armor no longer has Ice Blast prerequisite. I don't know, maybe I will have to make an ice source just to see if it's better now, because it sounds like it could actually be a little more viable, but I really need to see it in practice, I suppose. So I'll get back to y'all on that one. Glacial Spike now has 3 projectile and explodes with a freeze. The length was excessive, but I wanted it slightly bigger for overall skill feel. That's fine. That's kind of cool, actually. Explosion radius slightly increased. We get 29 plus damage curve increased. We got damage synergy reduced to 10% from 11%. Removed frozen orb synergy and reduced freeze length synergy. That's a lot of synergies that are going to be missing. Let's go ahead and talk about what I was just saying, which is Blizzard. Damage compared to 2.0.5 is within 5% or so, with the mastery maxed as opposed to Ice Bolt. Remove Frost Nova requirement and moved it right 1 column in the skill tree. 29 plus damage curve increase. Synergy is reduced to 4% from 5%. Removed Ice Bolt synergy. Man, it's kind of a tongue twister. Synergy. Chilling armor damage synergy increased to 10% from 9%. So that's cool. At least chilling armor got a slight buff. Frozen orb, fixed missile flag causing extra visual only explosive by the main orb. Ice bolts cast by the orb and the explosion now explode like glacial spike, but only chill. Damage curve adjusted back to vanilla values. Damage synergy reduced to 4% from 5 and added Frost Nova synergy. Okay, I might actually try the frozen orb for once because I never use that skill, so maybe I'll give that a shot. Cold Mastery now grants 150% cold skill damage with 25 hard points. Now grants 150 cold skill damage with 75 soft points. And now grants 25% negative enemy cold resistance with 25 hard points. And now grants 25% negative enemy cold resistance with 75 soft points. Why is it points? What are points? I don't know what those are. So in other words, it's not going to matter how many points you put into cold mastery. Once you get it maxed, that's it, you're done. And it's really not going to change depending on how many other points you can get into that skill. Lightning charged bolt. Okay, here we go, guys. I'm a little scared. Hopefully this is not going to make me decide to go back to Doom. Changes to keep it similar and competitive with endgame. Okay, 23 plus damage curve increased. Added synergy with chain lightning static field, which is one of my absolute favorite skills. Don't sleep on static field. Let's read this first and then I'll talk about static field. A bit of an extreme amount of HP removal. Leaks. HP removed reduced to 10% from 25%. Ouch. That sucks. I am not digging that. No, I'm not digging that. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not digging that. Only because I don't like nerfs. Because I've really felt like for a long time people were sleeping on static field because they really didn't understand what it was that static field was doing. Static field is an amazing skill, it really is. There are so many times where I was farming as a Nova source and I would just sit there and spam static field until I get the monster down to like 20% life and then start hitting them with my Nova, because it always felt like I was doing more damage simply with static field alone, which in my opinion never really made sense, because I don't know, I guess in my mind I always thought the way it should work is it would reduce the resistances for the monster, but instead it would always just straight remove the HP from the monster, which is why I feel like people never really used it properly, which is why I feel like it was one of the better skills in the game. I don't know why, but I guess in my mind it just never worked the way I thought it should. And in fact, I know a lot of people who would basically never use static field and never really got why I would always sing its praises. Well, that's why. Taking away giant chunks of the enemy's HP like that was just freaking overpowered AF, it really was. But no longer will it be that overpowered. Now, we still have 10%, but obviously I'm not going to enjoy being dropped down 15%. But I guess it is what it is. Nova, 29 plus damage curve increased and added thunderstorm synergy. Cool. All right. Yeah, let me have that. Lightning, wanted this to keep a similar range of damage but feel more impactful. Man, they did a lot of work to the sorceress. Is it still Deligus right here who's working on these? Because man, you're all over this, bro. Like, you're working real hard to make the sorceress pretty good, to make the sorceress way more balanced, which is, I can commend you for that one. But let's keep on going. Lightning, missile speed increased slightly. Okay. 23 plus minimum damage curve increased. 9 plus maximum damage curve increased. Cool. So it's going to hit you a little bit harder. And synergies increased to 14%, up from 8%. Removed Nova synergy. So I'm wondering if what's going on here is you're really trying to make it so that Nova isn't like the absolute be all end all skill for the sorceress, because there are a lot of abilities with the sorceress that I just never use because I've always felt like they were garbage. One of them being lightning, and even chain lightning to an extent. Yeah, chain lightning's pretty good in the early game, but once I get into nightmare or hell, I would never use those, which always has kind of sucked, especially considering the fact that these skills look cool, I can say. So it would be nice to be able to use them more. And it appears to be that might be what's going on here. So let's talk about chain lightning. Nope. All right, so let's talk about thunderstorm. Decreased minimum time between bolts by 0.2 seconds. Now 0.8 seconds at around 20, down from 1 second. 29 plus damage curve has been increased Synergy increased to 8% from 7%, and added a Nova synergy. Okay, I mean, I never really put too many points in the Thunderstorm, unless I was playing the version of Diablo 2 Reimagined where you get 2 skill points instead of just the 1. But I might actually put points into that now, considering it did get a pretty decent buff right there. So it actually gives me a reason to even try Thunderstorm. Energy Shield. The Immortal Source, which if you don't know, there is a build of a sorceress that basically makes you immortal when you have an energy shield that is refilling so quickly that the monsters simply cannot kill you because they can't do enough damage to get through your energy shield. But let's see what he's trying to do with that here. Immortal Energy Shield Source is exceptionally easy to obtain in this mod, which it is. So it's going to be a bit more of an investment slash challenge. And that does make sense. Only specifically for people who know how to exploit the system. I don't think a regular player is really going to understand how Energy Shield works, just how overpowered Energy Shield can really be. So for those people, they probably won't care. I care a little bit, but from the looks of this right here, it doesn't look like you're really going to make it too much harder than it was previously to obtain it. So reduced maximum absorption cap to 90% from 95%. Fixed TK synergy to apply the negative 6% mana per health to 63%, a 12% buff up from 75%. And now we are going to be hitting up Lightning Mastery, and it looks like it's everything that was going on with Cold Mastery, but is now applied to Lightning Mastery. And now we can move on to the Fire Sorceress, which I remember that they really wanted to change the Fire Source and make it viable, because the Fire Source may have been one of the weaker versions of the Sorceress. So let's see if they were able to actually increase that quite a bit. This skill was reaching 120 to 130k, and between this nerf and mastery change, it is in a more healthy spot middle and end game. Synergies have been reduced from 14%. No, synergy has been reduced to 14% from 16%, so they are going to nerf it, it appears. Warmth, mana recovery changed to 15 base, 15 per level, from 30 base and 12 per level. Life per kill visual bug fixed. So I don't know, maybe I was sleeping on the Fire Source, but it sounds like the Fire Source was way stronger than I originally thought it was. Which could be true considering I haven't actually tried to play as a Fire Source in about 20 years, something like that. Once I discovered Nova, it was just always Nova forever. Inferno, missile speed and range increased slightly. Now cast an additional stream of fire every 6 levels, that's soft points. You also get Firewall synergy added. Synergy is reduced to 10% from 13%, and mana cost slightly increased. Alright, so Blaze, 29 plus damage curve has been increased. Fireball. This skill was reaching 100 to 110k, and is now sitting at around 65 to 67 after synergy nerf and mastery change. 25 plus damage curve increased. Synergy reduced to 12 from 14. So yeah, I guess I was sleeping on a Fire Source. Was it really doing that much damage? That's effing crazy. That's insane. I totally understand why they're trying to nerf that. Firewall. With an AoE and speed increase, the damage doesn't need to be quite as high as it used to be with full investment. Wall creation speed has been increased by 75%. Wow. And now deals damage in a larger area within the fire visual. Okay. 29 plus damage curve increased. Synergies with warmth reduced to 3% from 4%. So I guess because you get a bigger area of effect now with Firewall, and because you can cast it so much faster, they had to nerf it a little bit. Enchant. Over Performance King got whacked hard with the nerf bat. Between mastery changes and these changes, I feel like it has finally been reined into something we can live with. So the damage curve reduced by 5% total. Damage synergy down 4% from 9%. Hydra. 29 plus damage curve increased. Fire mastery. Everything I just said about the other elements, just apply that to fire mastery because that's what's going on there as well. And I think, Yep, we are finally done with the class changes. So now we're going to move on to general items. And I'm pretty sure I have almost 2 hours of footage now. Now, I understand that when this video goes out, it might only be at like the 45-minute mark. But yeah, man, I've been reading this for almost 2 hours. And I'm getting worried it's going to take me like 3 days to edit this video. So hopefully it doesn't. So let's talk about general items. Added extra throwing damage property and group. Currently only used by a Maddox Fury. Okay. Added slam tag to pole arms. Okay. I guess that's so you know that you can use tectonic slam with the pole arm, I suppose. I don't know. I'm a little confused on that one. Dagger socketed updated Chris to 2 from 3. Dagger sockets updated. Chris will now have 3 sockets instead of 2, which is pretty cool. And then the treasure clash below that is going to be 2 sockets instead of 1. And then the bottom tier is going to be 3 from 2. No, and we're also getting 3 sockets for Legend Spike and Stiletto, which is totally fine. I have not really anything bad to say about that whatsoever. Shields have been updated. Hyperion now requires 156 strength and can gain 4 sockets. I like that a lot. I really do. Troll's Nest now requires 156 strength and can gain 4 sockets. I like that they have more sockets on those now, because the more sockets you have, the more damage or the more whatever it is that you want to put in there you can actually have. Succubus Skull and Bloodlord Skull to 4 sockets from 2. Okay, so we are on unique items, but I'm gonna be 100% with everybody here right now. We have a lot more to go. We're not even halfway through these patch notes. So I think I'm going to split this up into probably 2 videos, because we're not even halfway through yet. The next video should be coming out relatively soon. Don't worry, it's not going to take no 3 months. Now, if you don't want to wait and you just want to read the patch notes yourself, please go ahead and feel free to do that. But if you give me a few days, I will definitely try to get out a part 2 to this. Because, I mean, check this out. So we're at unique items. Okay. Scrolling, rune words, sets. See, like, look at this, dude. And every single one of these we can click on, and it has stuff to tell us about the game. So, like, this is insane. It almost feels like this should be the true version of Diablo 2 Reimagined 2.0. That is how big these patch notes are. Just craziness, man. Yeah, see, I'm still going. So yes, I do apologize. Bear with me. It's coming. That video will come out. Yeah, so I guess until next time, see you guys later. And thank you for watching. And I will be back as soon as I can.